that they're going to introduce this 10 p.m. curfew on pubs, bars and restaurants. What happens at 10 p.m? What is the significance of the curfew? I mean, the virus is a, all-day, 24-hour
Does COVID come out like a vampire? I mean, it seems... I just don't get this, Hilary. What difference does it make shutting a pub at 10 or 11?
Well, I suppose observationally, if you look at what goes on in popular pubs and restaurants and clubs after 10 p.m, there is greater amounts of alcohol consumed, and people forget then what the rules are. They forget to socially distance, they hug, they kiss.
They'll just come earlier.
And that happens
people just
more
come earlier. I mean, if you were going to
10
go out at 8, stay till 11, you'll now go out at 7 and stay till 10. Well, I mean, it's human nature.
But it tends not to, because people finish work, then they come home, they get dressed, they go out, and by 10 p.m, they're still relatively sober. You know this, and I know that. And you have to put an arbitrary time on there if you want to restrict social gatherings in the evening when people do perhaps.
But to me, it's like, what are we trying? I come back to one thing. What are we trying to do here?
What's the strategy?
What is the strategy? Are we trying to suppress it, to stop it, what are we trying to do to this virus?
We failed to eliminate it.
Closing pubs and restaurants an hour early seems to me to be tinkering while Rome burns, if we believe it's as bad as the picture that you painted for us.
Well, you have to do something. If the transmission rate is going up and hospitalisations are increasing, which they are, what are you going to do? You can suppress the virus, as Dr Margaret Harris from WHO recently said a few moments ago. You can't get rid of the virus. We're going to have to live with the virus. So if we're going to have to live with the virus, what do we do? What do we modify that reduces the transmission rate? I mean, first of all, I think we need to stop so many households mixing together. The rule of 6 is all very well, but in England, that means that people from 6 different households can meet, and then those 5 people that you're meeting can take it back to those 5 households. They can have another meeting an hour later and meet
actually,
5
Hilary,
more households.
You couldn't do that
so
before the rule of 6,
is
right?
risky.
No, but on that, before the rule of 6, only 2 households could meet inside in a restaurant or pub.
Correct. Yeah.
Now, since the rule of 6, 6 households can meet inside. That makes no sense to me.
No, nor to me, and I have said that before, and I think that's something that they need to look at. Scotland didn't do that. They said 2 households. That rule continues, and I think that has more logical sense. But,
But Dr.
you
Hilary,
can
sorry,
pick apart
just to interrupt,
but there has to be some sort of arbitrary agreement.
I was going to say, that if you live on your own, or if you're older people, if you're grandparents who want to see their grandchildren, you're going to be really worried about this line that they came out with yesterday, that it is important to break unnecessary links between households. And you guys are talking about, the rule of 6 and the fact that it's crazy that 6 households are allowed to all meet together. But I can imagine if you are on your own, you'd think, well, hang on a moment, just don't let people mix in pubs, but at least let me see my family. This is one of those contradictions that people can't understand. It's vitally important for some people to be part of a group.
Yes.
Whereas, although economically
Absolutely.
it's vitally important for pubs to keep going.
Everyone has an element of self-interest.
It feels unfair to punish some individuals and let other groups meet, fueled by alcohol.
I just don't get what... this seems to me to be...
punishment's the wrong word. Huh? We're trying to protect everybody. We're not trying to punish anybody. And I say we. The idea is not to punish anybody, but to protect as many people as possible.
If you're on your own and they break the household mixing rule, I think that definitely feels like a punishment, especially when Matt Hancock has taken on rather a punishing tone, saying that it's all our fault because we've all abused the rules and that the consequences are we're going to have tougher lockdown restrictions. Yeah,
and I know that a lot of publicans are saying they feel like head teachers having to take phone numbers from people, their clients coming into the pub in case that they need to be traced if somebody tests positive that's used the pub. And nobody wants to feel punished or controlled, but I do think what it's all about is everybody being conscious of the fact that they could pick up the virus or they could spread the virus to somebody else, whether they've got symptoms or not. There has to be a limitation to human contact right now in a pandemic.
So why not...
It makes sense.
If pubs are a problem, why not shut them? I just don't get what the 1 hour thing's going to do.
Because you and I have been to pubs and restaurants recently where they are adopting very stringent social distancing rules. Tables are set far apart. The risk is very small. The risk there is negligible. The real risks are large numbers of different households gathering and then taking the virus back to other households.
No, I get it, but surely if you kick the pubs out at 10, more people are likely to go back to people's homes, aren't they? Human nature. They're likely to.
Well, I would hope that they wouldn't.
No, I know you would.
If they're listening to what's
Hilary,
going
we all
on.
hope people all abide by the rules. We know that young people in particular are no longer abiding by many of these rules, mainly because they don't really understand them. They don't get the logic. I think young people today are pretty savvy. You know, I've got three sons, 19, 23, 27. They're smart kids, and their friends are all smart. And they just want to look at this logically and say, does this make sense? And what they're all saying to me is, this doesn't make sense. We don't get it.
Why doesn't it make sense?
Well, because you can mix in huge crowds in a pub, but you can't have
what you're saying is perfectly OK.
Pubs and restaurants are all fine. In a pub. Only 6. Not huge numbers.
So why can't they carry on till 11?
Hang on, if you're in a pub, you're definitely in a group of more than 6.
Yeah, but you're not meant to be in a group of... The groups of 6
your individual group might only be 6,
there is a kind
you're
of,
in a big group,
there is a kind of logic. So the smaller the group, the less the risk of the transmission.
Yeah, but why should that group get any bigger after 10, between 10 and 11?
Well, I mean, would you want to close pubs altogether?
No. No, I want to try and get the balance right between avoiding a national lockdown, common sense coming into play, and having this thing of public health and saving the economy running at the same time.
Well, that's what the government thinks that they're doing.
I understand. My question for the government, we would ask them if they would come on, but it's day 147 of the boycott. My question is, I don't understand the logic of just saying we're going to shut pubs an hour earlier. I don't know what difference that's going to make, because by your logic, Hilary, most pubs and restaurants, and I agree with this because I've been to a few, they're all abiding by the safety rules. They're doing it the right way. And I don't see any evidence that much changes between 10 and 11. And if you do kick people out at 10 and they want to carry on drinking, they're more likely to go to people's homes, in my opinion.
But in large city centres, you've seen pictures in most large city centres of very large groups of people gathering, not socially distanced whatsoever, not wearing masks, not taking any precautions whatsoever. And every one of those people who've got COVID-19 are passing it on to people around them.
But that's different. That's not inside a pub or restaurant, is it? These are scenes in the street you're talking about.
Yeah, as well. But there are pubs that have been fined because they're not abiding by the rules and following the guidelines, aren't there? There are. Not everyone is complying. And it only takes a few people to ruin it for everybody else.
No, I get it, you see, but I want people to take this very seriously. I do think it's a really serious moment. But I think for people to take it seriously, what really worries me right now, I'm getting a real sense out there of people sick and tired of this, fed up with it.
Feeling punished.
Feeling restricted, feeling all these things that everyone's feeling. And they're looking at the government, who they don't really trust. They think they failed us the first time round.
No
they don't trust their judgment.
testing system.
And the testing system isn't working properly. And they're looking at these rules and thinking, oh, I just don't get that.
Every country in the world has imposed rules, and restrictions. And in some countries, it's been forced on them. You know which countries I'm talking about. In other countries, people have been much more compliant, shall we say. They're used to listening to what the governments and their authorities say. In America and here, our culture is question everything and don't trust anybody. And I think that is becoming a bit of our downfall. We've become so distrustful that we're saying, I'm not going to listen to anybody or anything. And whilst doctors and researchers and scientists do differ a little bit in their approach, they're saying, what are we trying to do, and what's the best way of achieving it? We're in a pandemic. The virus transmits between human beings through human contact. And the bottom line is you have to restrict that in some way or another. And you say common sense should be the be-all and end-all, but actually we can't rely on that because you've got to look at the transmission rates. They're very high.